Greetings and hello. My name is Sean, also known as Rob Hagan in certain circles, and this is day 11 of my VEDA challenge for 2020. VEDA being vlogging every day in the month of April. So it's Saturday. Uh, I know said I was going to do a reading of something for today, but today ended up being a bit of a hard reset. I had a long week at work, and I needed to sleep. I needed to rest. I needed to do nothing for the day, not even go out, get up, do some stuff, sleep. I have eaten, which is important, and I'm feeling good. I'm still a little tired, but I'm feeling good. So, not doing a reading today, what am I going to talk about? Well, I want to talk about superheroes. More specifically, superhero role-playing games, tabletop and whatnot. So I have an interesting relationship with both. As a kid, I was inundated with superheroes. Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, the Hulk. They were there. They were always there in some form, whether it was TV shows, cartoons, or comics, books, toys. Superheroes were there. And I knew of it probably more of a through less of comics and more of other media, and I loved it. I ate it up like every kid does. Kids love superheroes and dinosaurs, and I ultimately stuck more with superheroes. Um, and then there's superhero role playing games, and the funny thing is, I was thinking about it today as I was getting ready to talk. I was thinking back to what was my first tabletop role playing game experience, and it wasn't Dungeons and Dragons. It was actually the TSR Marvel Superheroes game, which used the fast rip system. You can look it up. Maybe I'll put a link. I don't know. But it was a system, you rolled D100, you compared to a chart, which was, I think, colorful, and depending on your result, you could do really well, you could do really bad, and you played the various Marvel superheroes. The reason I remember is because I was at summer camp, and a bunch of the counselors were role players, and I remember they brought in that game because they had a big map of the city, and you had little cutouts, and you had little heroes, and you had your stats on the back of cards, and you could just play the game, and it was fun. I also got to dabble in some D&D, and I think I picked up my first D&D supplement of any kind from one of them. But my relationship with role-playing games kind of drifted from there. I remained aware of them, but eventually as time went on, I got more into comic books. I would probably say I started reading a bunch of comic books in the early 90s, eventually reading a lot of Spider-Man. I would say probably from about 91 till the end of the decade, I was reading Spider-Man almost constantly. Also jumped over, read some DC, when got Superman, Nightfall, all that, and I stayed. I think I followed Superman for a while. Batman, not so much. Jumped onto the Flash, which I really liked, and still remains one of my favorite heroes. Wally West, not Barry Allen. Not a knock against Barry, but Wally was my Flash. And during that same time, I eventually bought a whole bunch of the Marvel superheroes RPG materials because they became cheap in the early 90s because eventually the license faded, and it was a thing. Comic book shops had them. They also had other superhero role-playing games, like Heroes Unlimited from Palladium. And as I got older, and eventually got to high school, and I started doing role-playing games there, I discovered things like Champions and the DC Heroes game, which I eventually saw supplements for that, which I actually own a copy back there. You can't see it past that book right there. Of the third edition, which I picked up. It was earlier. Was it earlier this year? No, it was last year in November at a local event. Picked it up for like $5. I spent a whole bunch of time dabbling in trying to convert characters to it, but digression from there. And to this day, I own several different superhero role playing games in different forms. Currently, I have three in this house right now, or where I am right now. One is a copy of third edition DC Heroes game. Another is a copy of Wild Talents, and the third is actually one of my favorites from the late '90s. When there was kind of, I wouldn't say, I guess it would be say there was a bit of a boom, or there was a bit of a emergence of a couple of newer superhero games and settings. One of which was Brave New World by Matt Forbeck, which is a setting I really like. I'm not and never will be enamored of the rule systems that it had. I felt that they were to the detriment of the game as a whole, despite the setting. If I was to ever run a game in that setting, I probably would have to sit down and figure out what rules I would use. I would probably end up using Savage Worlds because the conversions wouldn't be as difficult. Again, digression. The other game was Aberrant. And this was a game and its supplements that just were there for a long time in my game shop where I went. And I picked up the books and various things, and just, it was there. This is, if you don't know, the second book of a trilogy of games set in the same universe but at different times, going in reverse order. I did a game called Aeon Trinity, or Trinity, which was set in the future, involved psychics and humanity going into space, meeting aliens. And that was the first game. And they were fighting against an enemy called the Aberrants. And it was implied that they had come from Earth at some point in the past and may have once been human. But you didn't get much of the backstory until this came out. And it's explained that they were, in fact, at one point superheroes that showed up starting in the late 90s. And their powers eventually drove them mad because they were literally warping reality to do it. And then there was a third part, which was set in the pulp era, the classic, 30s, 40s, 20s, 30s, 40s pulp era. And kind of gives you an origin for why all of this may have been happening, called Adventure. And that one is something of a white whale for me. At the time it came out, I didn't buy it because there was only one book and I wasn't playing it and I wasn't running it. And I kind of had at that point fallen off of buying anything for White Wolf. And as time went by, however, that book has become increasingly harder to find, primarily because it was the only book for that setting, and it has things, it wasn't made, and not many copies were made. I mean, they can get it now in PDF, and that's fine, but I'd like to own a physical copy of it. I'd also like to physically own a copy of the original stuff. But, so yeah, superhero role-playing games. The reason why I bring up Aberrant is back. So is the entire Trinity thing. They've done a couple of Kickstarters for it. I think I backed the Aberrant one because Aberrant, of the three, is probably the one I know the most about and like the most. Trinity's fine. I had a bunch of stuff for it. I think I made a couple different copies of the main rules at different points. And I never owned Adventure. Played a little bit of it, but never owned it. And yeah, so there you are. A bit of a ramble, bit of a long-winded talk about superheroes. I guess why I like superhero role-playing games is you can do a lot with it. You can do 4-color, you can do Silver Agey, good time stories, and to this day I still love superhero role-playing games. I have several different ones. Like, I like the setting for Mutants and Masterminds. I have to kind of sit down and read the current edition system and see what I want, if I ever want to play it or run it. I love the setting. I have another system that I own the PDF for. I think it only exists in PDF of a game called Halt Evildoer, which I really like because it takes a lot of different things and kind of incorporates them together. But I like Aberrant. I like it as a setting, and honestly, there's nothing really wrong with this version of the game. Um, it can get broken, but that was the curse of this game and Trinity, and Adventure. Is if you built your character right, you could roll a lot of d10s and not break a sweat. But yeah, Aberrant. Um, yeah. So I think that's kind of a good place to stop. This is now officially the longest video I've done for this VEDA, and probably overall for all the VEDAs. So tomorrow we'll see what tomorrow brings, and I have a little bit more food to eat here and something to have to drink. But anyway, until then, I hope that you are doing well and feeling well. My name is Sean. This has been day 11 of VEDA for 2020, and I will be seeing you, my friends.